It's 2025, a new year, and the perfect time to turn your business dreams into reality. Maybe you've been tossing around a great idea, but haven't acted yet. Well, Shopify is how you're going to make it happen. Shopify makes it simple to create your brand, open for business, and make your first sale. With thousands of customizable templates, you don't need coding or design skills. Just drag, drop, and go. Plus, Shopify's social media tools help you connect all your channels and create shoppable posts so you can sell everywhere your customers scroll. Managing your business is easy too. From shipping to taxes to payments, Shopify handles the details on a single dashboard, letting you focus on what really matters: growing your business. Established in 2025 has a nice ring to it.
Before Epstein was the Franklin cover-up. Before that, the Finders, and long before that, the Cleveland street scandal. Pedogate Primer is a concise intro and overview of a growing child abuse epidemic worldwide. It features shocking instances of institutionalized and organizational pedophilia throughout history. Churches, cults, the world of arts and entertainment, the government, NGOs, charities, and major corporations are all complicit or culprits in many instances. Pedogate Primer delves into material that for many may seem like the stuff of conspiracy theories. For this reason, the book draws on academic resources, declassified documents, and other reliable sources, and steers clear of conjecture. Such shocking, true stories need no embellishment.
If you find yourself in need of legal representation, it can be a very stressful time in your life. In my career, I have dealt with thousands of lawyers, I've dealt with thousands of law firms, and I can confidently recommend to you Keith M. Davidson at kmdlaw.com. Available 24 hours, 7 days a week. Just log into kmdlaw.com. That's kmdlaw.com. Or you can call toll-free 833-4KMD-LAW. That's 833-4KMD-LAW. Personal injury, wrongful death, STDs, sexual assault, car accidents. They handle it all efficiently and professionally. It doesn't matter how imposing the opposition may be, because the team at KMDLaw.com are battle-tested and fierce. They will not stop until justice prevails. Go to KMDLaw.com or call toll-free 833-4KMD-LAW. If you're in for the fight of your life, stop screwing around and contact KMD Law.
A flooded home or business is never easy to deal with. You're left with a mess to clean up, having to deal with the insurance company to pay for the damages, not to mention the memories that are lost that you cannot replace. And Aquadam can be another tool in your arsenal to protect your home or business from the floodwaters, a hurricane storm surge, or the king tides. Give Aquadam a call at 707-764-2119 or look us up online at aquadam.net. We can help. We're also offering 10% off the price to anyone who mentions they heard this ad on the Opperman Report.
It's the Opperman Report. Join digital forensic investigator and PI Ed Opperman for an in-depth discussion of conspiracy theories, strategy of New World Order resistance, high-profile court cases in the news, and interviews with expert guests and authors on these topics and more. It's the Opperman Report. And now, here is investigator Ed Opperman.
Okay, welcome to the Opperman Report. I'm your host, Private Investigator Ed Opperman. You can find me at Opperman Investigations and Digital Forensic Consulting, either through my website, emailrevealer.com, or you can just email me at oppermaninvestigations@gmail.com. If you like our show, be sure and check out our Patreon. All the shows you hear Monday to Friday, AM/FM radio, you can find on Patreon ad-free. But if you want to check out our archives and past shows we've done on this topic, you can go to Spreaker.com. And as a matter of fact, if you go to Spreaker.com, you'll find a previous interview I did with our guest today. He's the author of the book, Before Son of Sam, The Submerged Histories of a Yonkers Cult, Jonathan Mitchell. So you can go to Spreaker, look for that old show, and we're going to be kind of filling in some of the more gray areas of this, of what has become like a Jerry Springer episode in my life. Okay, so Jonathan Mitchell, are you there?
Yeah, I am. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we've been talking off there for half an hour, just going over this crazy stuff. But remind the audience, who is Jonathan Mitchell, and tell us about your book, Before Son of Sam, The Submerged History of a Yonkers Cult.
All right, well, I'm an author. I was just a fiction author for a long time, but I had been interested in the Son of Sam case, and particularly in Maury Terry's theory, as he outlined it in his book, The Ultimate Evil. So I ran into some names a few years ago online that I had never heard of before on a website that unfortunately is defunct now, but I started to research the names associated with the case, and finally decided that I would write roughly an essay-length booklet on the case and these names that I had researched. And, fortunately found that the reaction to it was really positive. People were still interested in the case, and they wanted to talk about it, and we're still interested in researching it and finding an actual solution.
Right, and I agree with you. There's always a lot of interest in the Son of Sam case. A lot of my listeners complain. It's especially like 6 or 7 years ago when I was doing so many of them. Oh, Ed, how many times are you going to beat this dead horse? But there's always interest in Son of Sam. Especially now too, in the past year or so, with the new documentary that came out, the Netflix documentary. So now, let's start with this, okay? When I had you on the show last time, right? Like everything kind of turns into like a Jerry Springer episode, like especially like in YouTube comments. I got a guy commenting on my YouTube channel that I can't even see his comments. He somehow has me blocked in advance, but can show up and comment on my thing. It's just this whole bizarre things going, like these new cast of characters that have just come out from under rocks and are just turning this into some kind of personal circus. What is going on?
I get the same thing. I get a variety of odd comments on different threads, where things that don't even have anything to do with Son of Sam. On YouTube, just random videos that I've commented on. So it becomes obvious that people are following you around and watching your comments and your activity. I don't know entirely what's going on, but I suspect that it has a lot to do with some of my former research colleagues and certain people that they now are partnered with. Probably more to do with the people that they have partnered with since I've parted company with them. But these people are all kind of in the same boat, so I don't know who the mastermind of it is, but I know the general direction that this stuff is coming from. Yes.
Okay, so we have Maury Terry wrote these books like in the 80s, right? It was like 1985, right? Right. Okay, and back in those days, if you lived in New York, you saw him all the time. He was on all the local tabloids, news shows and stuff like that. He was a frequent guest. You could see him on Geraldo. You could see him on Inside Edition, all these kind of shows, okay? And following Maury Terry's life's work of investigating this case and the people surrounding it, many other people that are very well respected, known investigators and researchers and authors, people like Dave McGowan, people like Cisco Streetlove, Russ Dizdar, Detective Jim Rothstein, all these people have William Ramsey, and myself, all these people have looked into this over the years for a long time. I joined that Facebook group many years ago, like 6 or 7 years ago, okay? And there's been, when Maury was in the group, not that we ever got along, but, when he was there in the group doing his bizarre reveal stuff that he would do, his little question and answer quizzes he would give us. But so all that's been fine for years. But something in the past couple of years has come up after Maury's death. When he was alive, we didn't have all these circus freaks doing all this stuff. But now we have this. And so is that what happened? He died, and then these other people... You were around before he died, right?
Well, I never belonged to the Facebook groups. I was just interested in the case for a long time. I thought now and then about writing to him, but I didn't know how to reach him or if, a letter would reach him. I didn't have an email address, but I was just always someone who was interested. Just an observer, an outsider, yeah. But I never spoke with him or anything. So I'm not sure if these people were always around and they just sort of crawled out of the woodwork. I don't know exactly what happened. They just waited for an opportunity. I'm not sure.
Maury Terry was very secretive about his email address, and I only got it because it was in a big giant email loop and a public where a whole bunch of people were emailed all at once. He was planning this trip to New York City where we were all invited. Dizdar was invited. Ramsey was invited. Who's that? Dr. Dale Griffiths was invited from the West Memphis 3 case, and to go and participate in this tour. And
right.
And so it was funny too because many people that you hear all these names now that are associated with the case, like Mike Cadella and these people, McCracken, would come to me and say, "Hey, can you put me in touch with Maury Terry?" Right? So I would email Maury with their information. He would talk to them, but he wouldn't talk to me. They'd come back, "Oh yeah, and thanks for the introduction." I said, "Why come you won't talk to me?" He would never come on the show. But I know he listened to everything we did. So it's been after his death that we've had this sudden change of vision here.
Right. Well, I think there are, he encountered a lot of resistance to his theory when he was alive from these sort of traditionalist sort of people. So maybe these people who are trying to discredit Maury now are sort of the new traditionalists of this case. Now that it's sort of been looked into for the third time since the actual events occurred, they have arrived on the scene to say, no, there's nothing to this. Maury was mistaken. He meant well, but all the usual. The same sort of stuff he encountered in life, it's happening again.
Yeah, I believe that the detective that he was always at war with, Detective Coffey, was it?
Yeah, Coffey and Borelli too.
Right.
was yeah.
Right. Okay, but that's different. That's the NYPD protecting their legacy.
Right.
The new agenda appears to be someone with the interest of protecting the Process Church of the Final Judgment. Okay, and that's...
I would agree. Yeah, I believe that's a very big factor here.
Right. And today, these same people that founded the Process Church of the Final Judgment now run a huge, probably the biggest animal sanctuary on the planet, with the biggest budget that for some reason transport animals back and forth across the country when they got a shelter right there in the same city, but they're shipping them to another city. Okay, I don't know how dogs work and dog breeding work, but it just seems logical to me. It seems like they're following the pattern of the criminal prison system that shuttles prisoners, inmates up and down to different prisons in different states, and that's definitely a money game to bill for the travel expenses. There's no doubt about that. I think anybody involved in criminal justice knows that. And it seems to be the pattern that they're doing here with these dogs. So what did we have? Okay, it seems that we had a very good documentary called Cropsey, right? About
That's right.
Andre Rand on Staten Island, and it touched on the Process Church of the Final Judgment, was hinted about in this. And then I guess people like Maury thought that they could trust this documentary filmmaker with this precious material.
It appears so, yeah.
Okay.
At the end of his life, he made a miscalculation, and the information wound up in the wrong hands.
Right. Now, first of all, now I know the answer to this, but tell me what you know. Do we know that all of Maury Terry's material was turned over to this documentary filmmaker, and do we know the chain of custody from Maury's hands to the documentary filmmaker's hands?
I don't know that personally. I'm not sure how it came into the filmmaker's hands, or if there are other parts of it that were never released. I'm not sure. I suspect that there were, but I can't say for certain.
Okay, I've been told that he doesn't have all the material. I've been told that, first of all. And I know exactly how he got it. He didn't get it directly from Maury. He got it from a relative of Maury. So we know that. And when I confronted the documentary filmmaker in public, hey, what's the chain of custody on this? What's going? Right after I saw this documentary, it was horrible. He was very evasive. He wanted to talk to me in private. We can try and talk in private. He's insulting me. It was very bizarre. This whole thing has gone crazy. It's never been this hysterical with these personal egos and attacks on people. Never before, has it?
I don't believe so, no. And in fact, I was just discussing this with a couple of fellow researchers yesterday, and one of them said this has totally become about these people's egos. They've made it all about themselves. And I said, yes, absolutely, they have. It's all about them now and their personalities. It's becoming less and less about the case all the time. Okay,
so then, why don't you lay out for us, because I know you're in the camp, the original Maury camp, that believes that the Process Church was the overriding, controlling force in this series of, and not just this, but other things too as well.
Right.
Why don't you lay out the case for that?
Well, as far as I can tell, and I dove into this head first and just immersed myself in it as much as I could. I've been doing this for about 3.5 years now. But what Maury Terry said was that there was a pre-existing cult in Yonkers. He dated it back to sometime in the early 50s. And they were sort of a ritual magic, sort of Aleister Crowley-esque sort of organization. But even then, that they were misusing and abusing children. At some point in the late 60s or early 70s, they made contact with the Process Church, which was an English organization which came to the United States, or the Process made contact with them, and they formed some sort of alliance so that by the time that the Son of Sam shootings were planned, it was the Process Church who were calling the shots, and they laid out the plan, and as David Berkowitz told Maury Terry, different ideas were tossed around. They discussed doing something sort of, along the lines of the Manson murders, but what they finally settled on was shooting young people in cars, and as Berkowitz also said, not all of the shootings were random. Some of them were deliberate, coordinated hits. But by that time, by 1976, by the spring of 76, when the shootings were being planned, it was very much the Process Church and its leadership, its top leadership. That's an important thing. The people at the very top of the Process Church's ladder were dictating the particulars of the Son of Sam attacks.
Now, that brings up something else, too, okay? Because, like, when I did my first show about the Process Church, and you would Google these things on YouTube, there was no content there. No one was talking about this stuff. You couldn't find this stuff. But now, even those old shows, those old repeats, are now getting attention and comments and being dragged into all this hysteria that we have now today. What do you think has changed in the past couple of years that suddenly now we're throwing out all of this work and replacing it with a lot of ego and opinion?
It's a good question, and I can't really, I don't know the answer fully. I know that when I wrote my booklet and self-published it, I wondered if there would be any interest at all. And I found that, not only was there interest, but that increasingly flamboyant characters with their own narratives and their own interests started coming out of the woodwork, and people they wanted to talk to me because I had written this booklet, and I guess I was pretty naive in the beginning because I thought we were all on the same side and that we, what we all had in common, no matter what else we didn't have in common, but that we all shared an interest in actually solving the case. And unfortunately, that was a misstep on my part, because we definitely did not all have the same goal in mind. And I found that, especially since the documentary was released, people's actual motives have become a lot more, suspect and a lot more murky. But yeah, unfortunately, there are a lot of strange characters who are roaming around this landscape now.
What was your participation in the documentary?
I didn't have any. I just spoke to the filmmaker a couple of times, and I watched it. Excuse me. I watched it and was not. I thought it was tolerable until the very last segment, which I guess it was in 4 episodes or segments, and the 4th segment became pretty openly a case of character assassination.
Yeah.
And I didn't care for that. I thought there were ways that they could have shown that the case Maury made was accurate, and they didn't bother to do that. In fact, there was, that long stretch of the interview that he did with Berkowitz in 1997, wherein Berkowitz identified a key high-ranking process member from a sketch done by someone at Undermeyer Park in 1976. The sketch is sitting there on Maury Terry's knee in the interview, face up. Everybody can see it. Berkowitz identified this process member from the sketch. The documentary film shows just minute after minute of this interview, but with a voiceover, never bothering to point out, as they could easily have done, that Berkowitz identified this high-ranking member of the process church from the sketch. So it would have been very easy, instead of calling Maury's entire theory and his sanity even into question, as the documentary film unfortunately did, it would have been very easy in that instance to show that Maury's theory was completely accurate and that he was right. But they chose not to do that.
Okay, and remind the audience again, who was this a sketch of?
This was a sketch of Ken, who Berkowitz called a recruiter for the process. And Ken was, in fact, a high-ranking member of the process. He was at Undermeyer Park. Multiple witnesses saw him there. He was sketched there by this person who was called Billy the Artist. And Ken still exists. He's still with us.
Okay, and Billy the Artist, there's some kind of question now as whether Billy the Artist ever even existed, but we have a sketch.
Right. Well, Billy was he appeared on that same program that originally showed the 1997 interview. It was an A&E program called Son of Sam Speaks, and Billy was interviewed there, and he talked about doing the sketches and meeting various people. Meeting John Carr, meeting the leader of the cult who put in a rare appearance at the park one evening. That was the person known as Moloch. That was his craft name, his witchcraft name. So he sketched Moloch, a.k.a. Mr. Real Estate, with several other names that we know this individual by, different pseudonyms and nicknames. So, and we also, for the record, we know Billy's real name. It was not Billy, of course, but we know his first and last name. We know he existed, that he did the sketches. Billy is no longer with us, unfortunately. He died. So it's very easy after these researchers and these people involved with the case have died to besmirch their memories and to make accusations about them and to say just wild, unfounded things about them that aren't true. And unfortunately, people have been doing that and making money at it.
Okay, and early on, I made the mistake of cooperating with this documentary filmmaker myself. Gave him a lot of material. I went back once, there was like 45 emails with this guy, man. 45 freaking emails with this guy back and forth, plus all the material I gave for him for free, hours and hours and hours of work. And so I made the mistake of cooperating with this fellow too. I backed out when he tried to get me to sign an NDA. It was nonsense. But now. You've made the same mistake. Okay,
unfortunately, yeah.
Okay, so
yeah.
What has your experience been dealing with these people?
Well, my interaction with him, the filmmaker himself, was very brief. I only talked to him on the phone a couple of times, and I knew people who interacted with him a little more extensively, and I don't know much about him, but my impression is that, it's someone who's cagey, someone who is sort of always holding something back and may not be telling you what he actually thinks or what he actually knows. He wants to see what you know, what you might let come out in the midst of a conversation, but he's, cagey. That was my general impression. So, while, I think people are getting the wrong impression from both the documentary and from various people who are at work within this case and the activity around it now, and the bad impression, what they want people to think is the truth is they're deliberately misleading people, and I'll worry about that.
Okay.
Sorry, I couldn't put it more articulately than that, but I think people are being deliberately misled, and I think, unfortunately, the documentary was part of that.
Yeah, and I think he got lucky with the first documentary, which was touched on these issues, and then perhaps... you know what I mean? It seems like in all these cases, there's an official story. With the McMartin Preschool, they came out with that Oliver Stone movie with James Woods, right. The Jeff McDonald case, and they come up with this official movie. And it seems, and which is the tactic that they use all the time. And it's pretty much the same kind of organized group, the same kind of pattern of people, and the same kind of trolling and internet sock puppet situations go on with the West Memphis 3 case. It goes on to that Hampstead case and over there in England, just where there's a bizarre third element of insertion of chaos and confusion and trying to turn it into a wrestling match rather than serious journalism or investigation. So now you also became involved with the fellow, we call him the gardener, who has this other YouTube channel. Okay. Because I really don't want to draw any attention to these people and boost their careers up anymore. But
I don't either.
And it's starting to become a headache, though, because I play a repeat from 9 years ago, and I got all these crazy comments from new people I've never heard of. Like, where were you 9 years ago? Where were you 9 years ago? What was this going on? So now you had involvement with the research team of again, with the gardener, too, but also combined with people in the Carl De Niro official Maury Terry Facebook group, right?
That's right. This was something that I was, we worked together for several months, and then I was sort of abruptly frozen out of it without any kind of explanation or anything, really. It was just one day I was out. That was it. So it was never,
right.
Nobody ever bothered to elaborate on the reasons why, or and now some of these folks have been interacting with the gardener again in an attempt to get closer to what they feel maybe, or what they profess to feel maybe the actual facts of the case, which they apparently are admitting publicly now that they believe that the facts are at variance with Maury's theory. Now, this is a really important aspect of what we're talking about. Initially, we all agreed that Maury's research was correct. Over time, these people have been distancing themselves from Maury's research and saying, well, maybe this is not so important, or well, maybe this huge chunk of it's not right, or maybe this part's not right. But the fact is that no one has ever really publicly addressed Maury's research, least of all the gardener, who is the most vocal opponent of Maury's theory. Now, he claims to have figured out the whole case, and he's got all the sources, and he's got all the inside information, and he's going to show everybody what really happened. But in fact, not only has he not refuted Maury's theory. He hasn't even addressed it. He doesn't talk about any of the particulars. He doesn't, it's just, I don't know how to get this across to people that they're hearing things that they're not mistakes or missteps or, well, gee, I can go back and fix this later. Or whatever. This is a deliberate attempt to sweep Maury's research under the rug forever. And yet, bizarrely, it's a very lazy one, because he's not, and by extension all these other folks who work with him in whatever capacity, they're not addressing the actual facts of the case. In fact, they're trying to brush away large, important chunks of research and questions about, very particular suspects and places and dates and what these people were doing in a certain month in, 1975, 76. There was some sort of chicanery in one of the Facebook groups, and I'm not there myself, but I have good friends and good researchers who keep me abreast of this stuff. And there was a point at which Maury had posted several years ago. I don't know exactly when the post appeared, but I guess this was a few years before he died. But he had posted, and this is something that Jen and I discussed briefly, I think, on the last show. But Maury had talked about the trip taken by 3 members of the Yonkers cult at some point in the 70s up to Montreal. That the trip they made was specifically taken with the encouragement of and at the behest of the Process Church. We know the names of 2 of those members. Actually, I know that the name of the third person has just never been publicly released, but the 2 names that Maury mentioned were Ralph Marcel and Suzanne Conway. These were both, Conway in particular, long-standing and well-known members of the cult. Nobody can really refute the fact that they were involved in this stuff. They can say, well, gee, we don't want to talk about that, or, well, that's probably not very significant, or whatever, which they have done, in fact, but they can't refute that these people were members. They were. And fairly recently, someone was asking about this post, which I have a copy of, by the way, so that there's no doubt that Maury posted and that it did appear in the official group. And they were told by the person who has sort of conferred upon himself the title of, leading authority on this subject, that no, Maury, in fact, did not say that this trip was related to the Process and that it was taken at the behest of the Process Church. That is flatly untrue. Maury said exactly that. It appeared in the post, and I have the post. Now, I don't know exactly what happened after that. I believe the person who asked about the post continued to pursue the subject and said, well, what happened to this post? Why are you saying that the trip in question taken by these 3 members of the Yonkers cult had no connection to the Process, and just essentially received no further response. So someone is going through and
sanitizing.
Yeah, I mean they're trying to take the research and just I don't know, wipe it away, or they think that if they deny it long enough, people will start to think that, hey, yeah, maybe I didn't say that, maybe that never existed. I don't know, but the case in question with the post that Maury did about the trip that these cult members took to Montreal and the fact that it was done in on behalf of the Process, I have that post. It exists, and I have.
Now let me ask a question.
That,
is this an issue with the administrator that we were talking about that I told you off the air that I had blocked?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, okay. See, so then I can add a little bit of this to this, too.
Yes.
I've been in that group, like I said, for a long time. I don't know who this guy is. I never really recognized his name before. We got into a little debate back and forth, which I didn't even want to be involved in, on the West Memphis Three, where he was defending the West Memphis Three, saying they were not guilty, which is an odd position to be in this type of group. Okay, so, and when there's a direct connection between West Memphis 3 and the Process Church, and Jennifer Peoridge, Genesis Peoridge.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Photographed with Damien Eccles. Okay. All of this. Okay. These characters, these Hollywood types that are around Eccles. Okay. So I'd never seen this guy before. I didn't know who he was, and I was just posting through there one day, and I says, hey, does anybody, who can I interview, right? And someone said, well, interview this guy. And then when I started chatting with him, I realized it was the same guy as the West Memphis Three. And then this guy followed me around. Anything I would post would basically say, see, this is the stupidity we're trying to get rid of in this group. This is here he goes again. Here he goes again with his crackpot theories, stuff that's been commonly accepted by everyone who's been looking at this for years. Okay.
Yeah.
So now, how are these people? Some of them are well-respected infiltrators. How is this happening? And who do they come to you? Or do you go to them? How does all this happen?
Right. Well, in this case, the person we're talking about was an associate of somebody that I knew and trusted, and I was unaware of this person's existence for a long time. That this administrative figure that we're talking about. He, from my point of view, emerged pretty suddenly and just kind of out of nowhere. So I'm not really sure where he came from. And I want to stress to people, too, that this is these are not personal criticisms of these people that I'm making. It has nothing to do with any personality conflicts we might have had or how I feel about them or how they feel personally about me. This is to do entirely with the case because something very strange is happening, and these people are always on the horizon somewhere when it happens. So we're talking strictly about the facts of the case and this has nothing to do with my personal feelings about them or theirs about me. But something strange is happening, and somebody or a group of people are nudging the case away from the research that Maury did, the facts, the verifiable facts that he uncovered. And these people are always lurking around somewhere when the case is being nudged in the wrong direction. So it's impossible to ignore that. I don't know what their motives are. I don't know if they were ever. I don't know if they ever sincerely believed in the case that Maury made. I don't know. It's just impossible to tell because they share very little with you. Why I was ever privy to any of it, I really can't say. I don't know what. I don't know if they thought if I was around long enough, maybe they could sort of steer me in the other direction. I don't know what they're. I don't know what they were thinking, but it's very bizarre. Yeah, there is a coordinated effort.
Yeah, this whole thing's very weird.
Happening, definitely.
Yeah, okay, we got to take a commercial break, but we're talking to Jonathan Mitchell about his book, Before Son of Sam, The Submerged History of a Yonkers Cult, and all of the more recent surrounding controversies and hysteria and trolls and all kind of weird stuff going on. We'll be right back with more of Jonathan Mitchell after these messages. And now a word from our sponsors. If you find yourself in need of legal representation, it can be a very stressful time in your life. In my career, I have dealt with thousands of lawyers, I've dealt with thousands of law firms, and I can confidently recommend to you Keith M. Davidson at kmdlaw.com. Available 24 hours, 7 days a week. Just log into kmdlaw.com. That's kmdlaw.com. Or you can call toll-free 833-4KMD-LAW. That's 833-4KMD-LAW. Personal injury, wrongful death, STDs, sexual assault, car accidents, they handle it all efficiently and professionally. It doesn't matter how imposing the opposition may be, because the team at kmdlaw.com are battle-tested and fierce. They will not stop until justice prevails. Go to kmdlaw.com or call toll-free 833-4KMD-LAW. If you're in for the fight of your life, stop screwing around and contact KMD Law. Thank you so much for listening to the Opperman Report. I want to welcome all our new listeners at WWPR 1490 AM in the Tampa Bay area. We're brand new down here. We're getting a nice warm welcome. We have great advertising opportunities for local sponsors, local businesses, but also international websites and international companies too on our other stations in California, Nevada, Utah, and on the internet worldwide. But down here in Tampa Bay, Florida, we have some great opportunities for you to come in and get very, very affordable advertising rates. Get a hold of me at oppermanreport@gmail.com and we'll cut you a good deal.
A flooded home or business is never easy to deal with. You're left with a mess to clean up, having to deal with the insurance company to pay for the damages, not to mention the memories that are lost that you cannot replace. And Aquadam can be another tool in your arsenal to protect your home or business from the floodwaters, a hurricane storm surge, or the king tides. Give Aquadam a call at 707-764-2119 or look us up online at aquadam.net. We can help. We're also offering 10% off the price to anyone who mentions they heard this ad on the Opperman Report.
Emailrevealer.com. People ask me all the time, hey, Ed, are you still a private investigator? I sure am. Go to emailrevealer.com. We handle adoption investigations, infidelity investigations, where you give us your spouse's email address. We trace it back to online dating websites, catch them cheating online. Email tracing, locate or identify somebody from as little as an anonymous email address. Someone owe you money? Back child support? We can find that deadbeat, locate his hidden assets, locate his hidden bank accounts, find his current place of employment, and even assist you in obtaining a judgment and recover that judgment for you. Emailrevealer.com, digital forensics, computer forensics, cell phone forensics, recover deleted text messages, create a report that you can use in court. Emailrevealer.com, 800-572-9762.
It's the Opperman Report. And now, here is investigator Ed Opperman.
Okay, welcome back. Welcome back to the Opperman Report. I'm your host, private investigator Ed Opperman. We're talking to Jonathan Mitchell about his book, Before Son of Sand, The Submerged History of a Yonkers Cult. So now, Jonathan, we were talking off the air a bit now. And I was saying, when I invited the gardener to come on the show, he told me, well, I don't do my own research. I have my researchers. I'd want to bring my team, right? So now, why are people so eager to do research for this guy?
I really can't say. You know, I think he has the sort of personality that comes across well on camera. That's fine. There's definitely a use for that, you know. But during the time that I interacted with him, it was a mutual friend of ours at the time who was doing the lion's share of the research, great research, and I was doing research as well. The gardener, was doing none of it. When, as you say, he admitted that to you, and he's not a research guy. He's not a nuts and bolts guy at all. He doesn't do that. He's just the public face of whatever's going on at the time.
Right, and like we were saying off the air too, it's interesting because when he did want to come on the show, it was just for over a personal beef he was having with one of my guests, which seems to take priority. These personal attacks and calling people liars, and even you said you got some threats after the last show. These seem to take priority over any interest in the work.
It really does, and that's how they derail the discussion and draw people away from actually researching the facts of the case and into this melodrama, which is just it's awful. But that is the goal. I believe that's entirely deliberate. Yes, they're doing that on purpose.
Now, I haven't had any contact with Carl since he went to visit David again. Do you have any information about that?
I just saw, part of the video that he did with the person that we've been discussing. And no, I don't have any. My impression is that it did not go very well.
Oh, really? The meeting with Berkowitz didn't go well.
I don't want to get too far into the specifics of that, but I believe that Carl's association, regardless of how momentary the second time or the third time or however many times it is now, with the interviewer / public face in question, has has not done him any good in that regard. It has not made for an open, frank discussion with David, and I believe it has produced the opposite of that, in fact.
Okay, that's interesting. I wasn't aware of that. But it's also interesting, too, that David Berkowitz did put out a public letter on his website defending Maury Terry's work. Now, what more do you want than that?
Right. But it's actually, and I believe David Berkowitz has been very consistent about this, because Maury's information essentially came from David. I mean, there were things that Maury did on the outside, and of years and years of research, but the core of his theory comes from things that David was able to confirm about this group that he belonged to in Yonkers, and about their very close association with the Process Church.
Now, where do you land, you yourself, Jonathan Mitchell, when you hear these theories about the Process Church and their involvement in the Atlanta child murders, Charlie Manson, things like that?
Oh, I'm without question. I take a very dim view of the Process Church and their just their general motive for existence. I believe that they were always that they always had bad intentions, that they were connected to intelligence agencies that likewise had bad intentions, and that's whose work they were carrying out, essentially. But yeah, I would say to anybody who's interested in this case on any level that the process is as bad as it gets. They're as scary a group of people as you could probably conceive of.
And this is something that you alluded to on the last interview, that you believe there was some kind of U.S. intelligence connections to these all that period of time and all that activity.
Right. I believe so. I believe that the process ultimately emerged from MI6, the British intelligence agency, but MI6 and CIA have had very close ties for generations. What the ultimate motive was, I don't know, but MI6, via its association with the Tavistock Institute, there seems to have been some connection to the process there, because the Tavistock Institute was very interested in something called social turbulence, and research into a phenomenon called social turbulence, and how to steer the public mind in certain directions via one staged chaotic event after another. And this social turbulence theory, essentially the same thing shows up in a lot of the Process Church's literature and its stated goals. We know that, of course, about the process, the fact that it originated from Scientology. It was an offshoot of Scientology, but really that's just the tip of the iceberg. They had some much darker, deeper connections to some really ugly things that were frankly much uglier than Scientology. But yeah, I believe there was an intelligence connection there, and that in fact the Process Church would never have existed if not for government and military intelligence.
Right, and then when you have the Scientology connection, then you have Crowley, and you have Jack Parsons, government scientist. You know what I mean?
Right, absolutely.
Open Satanist, government scientist right there in your face. Oh boy, I tell you, what a mess. What do you see happening next? We're almost out of time. What do you see happening next with all this?
I wish I knew. What I hope is that people will do research of their own, and that they'll be able to confirm things that they've heard or that they suspect in their own minds. I think there are probably researchers out there who are going to make connections that I haven't thought of, that no one has happened upon up until now. But it is going to require that kind of research to solidify the connections in this case. I think people are going to have to see for themselves that it was that Son of Sam was in fact connected to the activity of the Process Church, and I hope that people will bother to go out and do some reading and research and confirm that for themselves. But it definitely is kind of a crazy, unstable atmosphere with this case right now. There is interest in it, but there are people who I believe are actively trying to derail the discussion and take it to a dead end, unfortunately.
Yeah. And there's so much more to all this. Roy Cohen, Studio 54, huge operations. This wasn't some kind of small unfinanced operation. And now we
That's
see,
right. It's very large scale.
Yeah, and we see where they are now today with money pouring on their heads.
That's right.
Yeah, and I had one of the kids who built that place over there, and he's it wasn't, I don't know what they're doing, but if they have a kid building their kennels, they got millions.
Yeah. These people are still up to no good. Their motivations haven't changed. They're still the same people.
Well, not only that too, but the headquarters over there in DeKalb, Utah, is in the middle of nowhere. And a guy was busted for child pornography at the bus stop right in front of that place. So what else was he doing out there? Just over and over with this crew. Oh boy. Okay. So now, what are your plans? You gonna write another book? What's going on?
Well, I've as I researched the case further, I would go back and, because the book I published it as an ebook, I'm able to go back and make corrections. So I have corrected some details here and there. I've added an addendum which touches on some of the things we talked about earlier. In particular, a couple of suspects. So there is a little bit of additional material in there since I first wrote it. Not a substantial amount, but there are some things that weren't in the first version of it. So what I do is I just continue to look into various names of suspects. I try to see what I can find out. I try to link one name with the other. Often something does pop up. Sometimes you don't have any luck, but I just continue to research the names of the suspects because there were a lot of people involved in this. Even apart from the Process Church, just the people involved with this cult in Yonkers and Westchester County, there were a lot of people working at some level in this. They weren't all even, inner circle members. There were associates and just people kind of loosely around the edges, but this involved a lot of people. So I just continue to look into those dozens of names and hopefully try to make yet another connection to add to the overall picture, because it's the evidence is there, and the cult was real, and these people really were involved with it. So, hopefully I'm continuing to research will eventually lead me in the right direction, and we'll sooner or later come up with a smoking gun, or if not, we're going to keep at it anyway. But Maury's research was solid.
Yeah.
And these people, this one person in particular, who so insistently claims to have refuted Maury's research, has done anything but. He hasn't refuted it. He hasn't even addressed it, and he knows that to be true. So. I hope that people will bear that in mind.
Yeah, and what's funny too is, when I did a rant, I think I did a solo show about this whole topic. I was pissed off at the documentary, and that admin, I think it was the same day that I blocked him. I went and did a show, and the gardener thought I was talking about him. So it's now it's interesting. Now all the interconnections here. I learn more off the air about all this. Every time I do one of these interviews. But I will say this to encourage the audience, and I've been through this before. We saw this with West Memphis 3, where there's all this kind of confusion and hysteria going around, but the truth always rises to the top. We saw this with McMartin Preschool, and in the end, we have FBI documents that confirm my own reporting that we had the guy there with the ground-penetrating radar. I first-hand eyewitness to a hand-dug room underneath the detached garage. So ultimately, the truth does prevail in these cases. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of confusion. The other side always seems to be a little bit more organized and well-funded, but when you got the truth on your side, it's really all you need. Jonathan Mitchell, I can't thank you enough for coming on the show. Check out his book called before Son of Sam, the submerged history of the Yonkers cult. And Jonathan, do you have like Twitter or Instagram where people can get a hold of you?
I don't really have a social media presence, but I'm happy for anybody to get in touch with me at my email address. It's throwaways@yahoo.com, and I'm happy to answer any email that comes in.
And once again, the book got 4.5 reviews, so you can see that the truth rises to the top. Jonathan Mitchell, thank you so much.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Good night. And now a word from our sponsors. If you find yourself in need of legal representation, it can be a very stressful time in your life. In my career, I have dealt with thousands of lawyers, I've dealt with thousands of law firms, and I can confidently recommend to you Keith M. Davidson at kmdlaw.com. Available 24 hours, 7 days a week. Just log into kmdlaw.com. That's kmdlaw.com. Or you can call toll-free 833-4KMD-LAW. That's 833-4KMD-LAW. Personal injury, wrongful death, STDs, sexual assault, car accidents. They handle it all efficiently and professionally. It doesn't matter how imposing the opposition may be, because the team at kmdlaw.com are battle-tested and fierce. They will not stop until justice prevails. Go to kmdlaw.com or call toll-free 833-4KMD-LAW. If you're in for the fight of your life, stop screwing around and contact KMD Law.
Before Epstein was the Franklin cover-up. Before that, the Finders. And long before that, the Cleveland street scandal. Pedogate Primer is a concise intro and overview of a growing child abuse epidemic worldwide. It features shocking instances of institutionalized and organizational pedophilia throughout history. Churches, cults, the world of arts and entertainment, the government, NGOs, charities, and major corporations are all complicit or culprits in many instances. Pedogate Primer delves into material that for many may seem like the stuff of conspiracy theories. For this reason, the book draws on academic resources, declassified documents, and other reliable sources, and steers clear of conjecture. Such shocking, true stories need no embellishment.
Thank you so much for listening to the Opperman Report. I want to welcome all our new listeners at WWPR 1490 AM in the Tampa Bay area. We're brand new down here. We're getting a nice warm welcome. We have great advertising opportunities for local sponsors, local businesses, but also international websites and international companies too on our other stations in California, Nevada, Utah, and on the internet worldwide. But down here in Tampa Bay, Florida, we have some great opportunities for you to come in and get very, very affordable advertising rates. Get a hold of me at oppermanreport@gmail.com and we'll cut you a good deal.
A flooded home or business is never easy to deal with. You're left with a mess to clean up, having to deal with the insurance company to pay for the damages, not to mention the memories that are lost that you cannot replace. And Aquadam can be another tool in your arsenal to protect your home or business from the floodwaters, a hurricane storm surge, or the king tides. Give Aquadam a call at 707-764-2119 or look us up online at aquadam.net. We can help. We're also offering 10% off the price to anyone who mentions they heard this ad on the Opperman Report.
Hey guys, if you like the show and you want to show your support, check out the Opperman Report Patreon. You can go there and become a member for $3 a month. We have all the shows that you hear Monday through Friday on AM/FM radio. We have all those shows, but we cut out the ads, so you can hear that content ad-free. There's a $5 section where we put up all the old member section shows are going up over there. And then there's a $10 section where we have brand new content. 8 hours of exclusive content per month goes up there in the $10 section. But listen, I put up a lot of free stuff too. We put up documents, court documents, photographs, announcements. So you should make the Opperman Report Patreon a stop. You should stop there once a day and check out what's going on over there. That's Opperman Report Patreon.